So this is our friction station, and it's pretty simple really. What we have is we have a board which can be adjusted to various angles. We have different materials which are going to cause to either slide down the board or to move up the board. And we can measure the force it takes, for instance, to move up the board with one of three, as you see here. Now, what this will do is we can attach, for instance, one of the materials, and we can either use our spring scale of this type, the blue, or red, or yellow, to pull the wood or whatever material up. But if you take a close look, you can see that this one, these are all, one side is calibrated in grams, and this one is the most sensitive, up to 250 grams, 2,000 grams with a force with which you can pull, and then 2,500, or excuse me, 5,000. So depending upon which one you want to use, that's appropriate for the situation. Now the angle, you can know what angle to set the board at with our protractor here. And we just set that along the edge of the board. We have this plumb bob, and what it's doing is it's giving you an indication of the angle. Vertical would be right where it says 90 degrees. In this case, we align with the board. The angle that we're interested in is how far away from 90 degrees you are, which is right nearly about 7 degrees or so. Right? Of course, you try to read it as precise as possible. So once we know that given angle, we choose whatever material we want to begin with. Let's say the pine, and remove all the other ones. And let's see if we can determine what angle it takes for this pine to break away from the board. So we're trying to get a feel for what's known as static friction, a measure of static friction force. So we can come over here, we can adjust that angle. And at some point, we're going to notice that the pine begins to slide. So, and you should test this several times, different parts of the board, but let's say we lock down on that angle, and we can get a measurement of that angle. So let's go ahead and see. So we can see that angle is pretty close to about 16 degrees or so. And so we're going to find that that angle will allow us, by calculation, to determine the friction related to this piece of pine trying to slide along this board. So that's one way in which we can do this experiment. Another way, let's just leave this angle where we are, and let's say that we now attach our spring scale to the pine. And so you see here we are on the Newton side, and we have the gram side of this. So let's be consistent and stick with the gram side. And now what we can determine is, for a particular angle, the amount of force it takes to move the piece of pine block, up the incline. So what are the forces we have in this case? Well, we have the applied force, that's what the spring scale is telling us. We also have friction force always opposes the direction of motion, so we have friction force downward. But we also have a portion of the weight of the pine that is trying to work against us. So in that way we can see how forces balance as we move the pine.